So another thing I wanted to go over was this Tesla crash lawsuit. There was a post on Reddit in the trashy subreddit that was really roasting the parents that would be so, insert metaphor here, audacious to file a lawsuit just because, you know, their kid crashed in a Tesla and was killed. Now, first off, a child was killed. Come on. Like, have a heart. But then, okay, I get the whole, we don't necessarily want to encourage people to sue car manufacturers because somebody drove recklessly and died. But this one was really easy. I didn't have to look very far at all to see what was going on here. And it was not like that at all. It was not, there was some reckless driving involved, but there was also some negligent behavior on a particular Tesla employee's part as well, allegedly, according to this lawsuit. So first off, one of the things that makes these kinds of cases awkward is there really isn't an injunction. There really isn't a what we call equitable relief or specific performance of a contract or an injunction available when someone has died. So right off the bat, let's remove the edge from the knife. You can't sue somebody over someone's death unless it's for money damages. There isn't any justice except for money damages or maybe criminal charges if some act arose to a level of criminality. And you can decide for yourself if this rose to a level of criminality. I don't think it did. But so let's just knock that off right away. I get that it's audacious to put a price on a child's life, but okay, but you also don't have anything else to do. There's no other way to sue somebody over damages in the form of a loss of life other than money. So I don't want anyone, well, I'm not going to be calling anyone greedy for suing for money damages for someone's loss of life. So let's get to this, though. This is the personal representative of the estate of Edgar Montserrat Martinez, deceased, versus Tesla and James Constantino. And just want to check, make sure we're all here. Okay. Comes now plaintiff Edgar Montserrat, personal representative of Edgar Montserrat Martinez, deceased, by and through his attorneys, suing defendant Tesla Florida, and James Constantino for in excess of $15,000. At all times alleged, here the plaintiff has been the duly appointed representative and litigates this wrongful death action on behalf of the estate. And this is one of the normal ways to do it. There would be a personal representative or an administrator or a trustee, someone acting on behalf of the estate of the deceased. Mr. Montserrat Martinez died on May 8th, 2018 as a result of injuries suffered in an automobile crash in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. At the time of his death, he was 18 years old, not married, had no children. He's survived by his parents. Tesla was in the business of designing, testing, inspecting, manufacturing, distributing, selling, maintaining, repairing, or otherwise placing into the stream of commerce the automobiles, including theirs, a 2014 Tesla Model S. And Joseph Constantino was an employee or agent of Tesla. And the owner of the vehicle was James Riley, who, notice, that is not Mr. Montserrat Martinez or Mr. Montserrat. The vehicle was kept and maintained at the Riley home. Barrett Riley, also deceased, was their son. Different person. This is a different person, second person deceased. On May 8th, 2018, the decedent, Edgar Montserrat Martinez, was the front seat passenger in the vehicle that was operated by Barrett Riley, southbound 1300 block of Seabreeze Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale. At that time and place, Barrett Riley lost control of the vehicle, resulting in the vehicle striking a wall on the west side of the road. The vehicle then re-entered the roadway, mounted the curb on the east side, struck a metal light pole and wall. The vehicle erupted in flames. Edgar Montserrat Martinez perished as a result of injuries sustained in the crash. So that's the basic crash that happened, and sort of a testament to the well-pled and brief complaint. They have not had to re-allege facts here. They're going to go right into the next part. The vehicle was traveling at a speed in excess of 116 miles per hour when Barrett Riley lost control of the vehicle immediately before the crash. Now, that's important, because if you have never gone 116 miles an hour, and more importantly, if you've never, and you should never have gone 116 miles an hour in at least a car driven by yourself under unsafe conditions, under anything but controlled and monitored and stuff conditions, because that is a very high speed in a car. If it's not a car that's been tuned for that kind of speed, if it's just a regular passenger car, that is a high enough speed to do lots of things very quickly, and is no doubt in my mind how someone could lose control of a car at 116 miles an hour on public roads and have a crash that resulted in all kinds of damage and flames and death. So first, I wanted to make sure that everybody who might not be aware or might not drive 116 miles an hour, which would be something like 180 kilometers an hour, is way, way, way too fast for anybody to be driving really any car, any consumer vehicle, even a Tesla Model S, which would be a car capable of great speeds and very well tuned, I'm sure, is still not going to be able to handle most racing type situations on a public road. There's just, yours truly has a little bit of experience with this personally with my ownership of motorcycles. I don't ride motorcycles anymore because, one, I don't trust the drivers around me, but two, I don't trust myself. If I'm going to own a motorcycle, it can stay at the track and I'll go take it out at the track or something. There are too many crazy drivers, and frankly, I like to go fast myself. So just wanted to make sure that we touched on that a little bit. This is an extreme speed. And the driver, who is not the plaintiff's, is not the plaintiff's estate here, the driver, a separate person who was also, I believe, 18 years old, had a history of negligent operation of motor vehicles, including speeding, and in particular speeding in this particular Model S. His speeding had previously endangered his passengers and the general public. 2 months prior to the crash, March 3rd, he was clocked at 112 miles an hour on a Florida highway and ticketed for such. As a result, his parents put a speed governor. They limited the top speed of the vehicle in an effort to improve its safety and safe operation for the benefit of their son. They requested that defendant Tesla install such a speed governor that would limit its top speed to 85 miles an hour. And through Tesla employees on March 6th, the speed governor of 85 miles an hour was installed. And the vehicle was limited, any driver was limited to a maximum speed of 85 miles an hour. Between March 29th and April 3rd, the vehicle was in for service. James Constantino allegedly removed the 85 mile an hour speed governor without permission, which was never reinstalled prior to the May 8th crash, and the parents were not ever made aware that the 85 mile an hour speed governor had been removed. So that's one thing. There's a little bit more in here, but that's one thing. Now, once again, 85 miles an hour versus 116 miles an hour is a 31 mile an hour difference, or something like 47 kilometers an hour, 50 kilometers an hour. That, again, is a huge difference for this kind of car. The Tesla Model S is a high-performance electric vehicle. It would perform much better at 85 miles an hour. And even if you lost control at 85, no guarantee you couldn't be injured severely or even killed, but much less. Like, I mean, 1/3 to 1/6 of the chance in my head, my gut feeling would be that you have a significantly less chance of being killed at 85 miles an hour than at 116 miles an hour. Certainly, everyone can concoct a scenario in their head where you could certainly, someone could be killed at that. I'm just saying, if you've ever gone that fast in a car, 116 is a much different level of speed than 85. You need a truly tuned vehicle and a skilled driver at 116. Whereas, well, I wouldn't recommend you go 85 miles an hour. Most cars can handle it. And as long as you're not being a giant idiot, you're going to be able to maintain control. If your roads are dry and your eyes are open and you're paying attention and you have any sort of experience, you'll keep great distances, and you shouldn't be doing this in the first place. Most places have a less than 85 mile an hour speed limit. So if you want to do that, really just go to the track. And if we don't have enough tracks here in the States, then, let's make some tracks, because tracks are awesome. And it's great to play with cars and motorcycles and things, but that shouldn't be on our public roads, because this happens.
Yeah, when I drive, I could drive faster. If nobody else was on the road, and if there was no chance of a deer jumping into the roads and all of that. I think, like, when you slow down or when you drive safer, half the time it's because you don't trust the other drivers on the road to behave properly, and you need time to react. Yeah, that's another thing. If you don't drive, or if you just want an education, or if you're like me, I have this link to the road cam videos on Reddit or whatever, and this is the link that every time I go to click it, I ask myself, do you really want to be mad right now? And sometimes I do. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you know what? Let's get some road rage going here at my desk. It's very educational, though, to see, even when I've been in the right, it's still sometimes a little bit aggressive to be, to block somebody or to slow down or whatever. And sometimes, you have to just let idiots be idiots, and they'll get what's coming to them, and you don't have to induce a more dangerous situation. So the lawsuit goes on that Constantino breached a duty of care and is therefore allegedly negligent. Had the 85 mile an hour speed governor not been improperly removed, the crash would not have occurred and he would not have died. This is establishing the but-for and proximate causes. This is going to be a point of contention. If Tesla doesn't want to pay out, or their insurance company doesn't want to pay out or settle this case, or the opposing side doesn't want to accept their settlement, if this goes forward, one of the points of contention is going to be whether or not you can say that, even though they removed the speed governor, the kid wouldn't have driven recklessly and died anyway. Even then, remember that we're not talking about the driver. It's sad that the driver died. I'm just as sad for that. But this is the passenger. This is not the driver who drove recklessly. This is the 18-year-old passenger. So it's not even the passenger's fault remotely. So you can kind of feel how the parents of the passenger would want to sue Tesla for removing the speed governor that could have prevented their child's death.
So I see two potential problems for this lawsuit, and let me know what you think on this.
Sure.
First problem is the negligence causality, the proximate cause element of negligence seems potentially too far removed, because the passenger doesn't really seem to have a cause of action for Tesla's negligence, or that would be an argument. And the other thing that I would argue if I were Tesla is that the person who came in and asked me to remove it had apparent authority to ask. Because I don't know about you, but every time I've ever taken my car to the shop to be repaired, they've never asked me who owns this car.
Yeah.
So it seems that whoever shows up with the car can ask for repairs. And that's to be expected because, parents let the child drive the car, and it's, de facto their car, even though it's in the title of someone else. So what do you think of those two defenses? Does either of those work for you?
Yeah, those would be some things that I'd be going with if I was Tesla, especially if so I guess I don't see facts in here yet as to how the speed governor was removed. In other words, like you said, was it removed because the child drove the car in for service and said, while it's here, please remove the speed governor? And they said, sure. maybe that's going to factor into it. Or maybe they just overwrote the software and forgot to re-engage the speed governor. So for example, you remember this just happened to me, right? I went to Scotland for 3 weeks, and I have a wireless thermostat, and the wireless part had stopped working. So I followed the instructions online, not thinking, hey, if I reset the wireless part of the thermostat, it's going to reset all of the settings in the thermostat. And then I promptly left. Checked in a few days later to find out that my system was in emergency mode, and the emergency was that it was too warm in the house and it had to shut down. 91 degrees is apparently when the system will no longer attempt to heat the house. Thank goodness, because it would have probably burned my house down. But it turns out that when you reset the wireless on this thermostat, it also resets the heating system settings, and you have to tell it, which wires go to which terminals and which kind of heating system you have, and it apparently changed that. So maybe that's what happened. They overwrote the software in the Tesla, and it just reset that setting for the speed governor. I don't know which one it is. If that's going to be a material fact, as they say. Now, they are also suing for strict liability and tort, saying that the vehicle was not crash-worthy, the batteries are inherently unstable and subject to explosion, that they were not adequately protected or shielded or not treated with an intumescent material to protect from the propagation of thermal runaway from adjacent cells. So they could have been treated or protected or constructed in some way.
For those of us who are not engineeringly inclined, what was that word, intumescent? What does that mean?
Yeah, I haven't actually seen that word before in my life, so let's check that word. It means a coating or sealant swelling up when heated, thus protecting the material underneath or sealing a gap in the event of fire.
Oh, cool.
So that's neat.
And they say the car is not crash worthy, but correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it like the safest car ever crash tested?
Yeah.
Teslas?
And that will be a good argument, or an argument that I would hear Tesla making as well, that cars are inherently dangerous when driven at 116 miles an hour. So we don't make our cars to survive 116 mile an hour crashes. We make our cars to survive 85 mile an hour or 45 mile an hour or 30 mile an hour crashes. And then those tests are what we validate safety ratings on. So sort of an assumption of the risk. The person was 18 years old, which is what we designate as an adult in the United States. Now you can say a lot about the 18-year-old brain. I bet you we could even have a conversation about the physiology of the 18-year-old male brain. He's not known to be to have the best judgment in the world.
Not exactly risk averse in general.
Yeah, just because the date flips from 17 and 365 or 4 days doesn't mean that the 18-year-old is suddenly wise and patient and careful. And heck, let's acknowledge that a Tesla Model S is probably fun to drive. I have not driven one myself, but I've been in a couple electric vehicles that my friend has, and I've certainly built my own electric bicycles, and it's got to be a fun thing to do, to drive, and you can go fast in a tuned car like that. So, but it's also dangerous to do on the streets. You shouldn't be doing that on public roads without a lot more preparation, preferably having the road closed and permitted and all that, or just go to a track if you're doing it for fun. If you're just trying to be cool with your friends, you're going to be encountering problems in pretty much any way you do it. Especially nowadays that everybody's got cameras. It's not like you're getting away with it without somebody posting it on the internet.
I have a question about liability. So in the complaint, they are alleging that a Tesla employee removed the control without permission. And so is the company Tesla still responsible for the employee's activities, even though the employee would not have been doing something that would have been sanctioned by Tesla?
Probably.
Yeah, the question's going to be whether it was done within the scope of their duties. And so that's what's the doctrine of respondeat superior, that the employer is responsible for the employee's actions. And the way to get out of respondeat superior is to say that he was acting outside of their duties or responsibilities, so therefore, not within the scope of their employment. Servicing vehicles, getting access to this vehicle was solely because he was an employee at Tesla. Being able to remove the speed governor was solely because he was an employee at Tesla. This was well within his responsibilities. I don't think there's going to be any successful argument getting out of Tesla's responsibility for the act of their employee. It would be argued, though. I would expect them to argue.
I don't know why Reddit is so mad. I mean, rather than ask for money, what's the alternative? What else should you be doing? Nothing, apparently. I don't know.
In Canada, when it comes to tort stuff, I don't know if this is how it works in the US, but you can be partially responsible for something. So because he's sort of one step removed from the driver. So the driver is mostly at fault, but the driver would not have been able to do what he did without the actions of that employee. So like in torts, a jury could find the Tesla employee, for example, 20% responsible. And so then whatever the damages are, Tesla would have to pay 20% of the damages.
Yeah.
Is that similar to how it works in the US?
Yeah, there's doctrines of comparative, there's two of them, comparative negligence and, help me out, Kurt, you know what the other one is? Contributory negligence, thank you. And these are things that vary from state to state, so we would need to look at the law in Florida. And yeah, a jury pretty much would eventually be asked to determine, were they negligent in a binary sense, and then in the overall scenario, what percentage of their negligence are they responsible? Are they legally responsible for? In other words, the kid drove 116 miles an hour. How much of that is he responsible for? Well, maybe Tesla is only 20% responsible. Well, that could still be, of a larger recovery, that could still be hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars even. But yeah, ultimately there would need to be a sort of overall award, and then they're responsible for something like 20% of it. And then I'm assuming the other half of this is that the driver's insurance, because we don't typically carry millions and millions of dollars worth of insurance coverage on cars. We usually only carry, 100, 300, or even 10,000, 30,000, like 10,000 per incident and 30,000 total or something like that. Or I forget how it is, but various coverages don't really go into the millions and millions of dollars. So if they're saying that this person's life and losses are worth millions of dollars, then yeah, they would need to go after all the sources, including Tesla, including the driver's insurance, any parental responsibility, which should be cut off at 18. So I wouldn't expect the parents to be responsible for the death of the passenger, but the 18-year-old driver would be in some way responsible for their reckless driving.
I don't know. I think you actually could make a claim, because the I wouldn't say it as the parents, but the owners, it's negligent entrustment is the argument. The owners of the car had actual notice this particular person had recklessly and negligently operated their car in the past and still entrusted it to that person. So there's a negligent entrustment claim.
But they thought they had a speed governor installed, and they thought the speed governor was working.
That's fair too. 85 is still bad though, but yeah, there's arguments both ways.
Yeah, so this is a much more interesting case than a simple post on the trashy subreddit would originally reveal, and I thought it was worth looking into.
Maybe don't give the kid with the history a Tesla Model S. Maybe that's not so great.
This
with
is
0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, this is a thing that I never really understood. We've seen so many severe accidents, collisions over the years. where a young person is given a powerful vehicle and quickly finds themselves either under arrest for something or in a bad crash or something. This has been happening since the invention of the car. Anything that goes fast, I bet you it goes back to horses. I bet you it goes back to anything that goes fast. There are lots of adventure seekers in the world, and lots of them are young people who feel invincible. And, you know, it happens to those who are wealthy in one way because they have access to things you can spend money on. Usually a poor kid isn't going to be the one driving a Tesla Model S around, kind of by definition. But it doesn't necessarily mean to me that it really does, that they deserve any extra schadenfreude because look, the lifestyles of the rich and famous ain't so great. Whatever. I don't really find it necessary to harp on people who have had success, but I would definitely not recommend giving your child a car that is so fast without them having demonstrated understanding of that. Man.
So one last comment before we move on. I wonder why cars can go so much faster than the top speed. Like, I'm not sure why a car is built to be able to go 116 miles per hour for regular domestic kind of use in the US.
Well, it's kind of a selling point too, isn't it? Like, 600 horsepower kind of thing, Like, they use stuff like that to sell cars. So, like, and they can't falsely advertise. So they actually put the power in the car, but then they put a speed governor on it to stop it from going too fast.